Okay, ZBA, you are live, you are recording, phone lines are open, you are good to go.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for May 17th, 2022. We'll get started right away with our scheduled public hearings. Our first public hearing is 43 Sandpiper LLC at 43 Sandpiper Lane in Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-177-01-33. The size and location is 39,088 square feet at 43 Sandpiper Lane, Sea Bluff, Lot 11, map 2701 in Amagansett. The description is to demolish approximately 20 square feet of decking and to construct an 11 square foot, one-story addition and 275 square foot roof deck with access stairs within minimum wetland setbacks and on a parcel of land containing beach vegetation and dewland. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code, and two variances are required for this application. Variances of 39 feet, 19 feet are required from 255-430 of the Town Code in order to construct a proposed addition 61 feet and roof decking 81 feet from freshwater wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. And I think, council, do we have a proper posting of affidavit of service and posting?
Affidavit of service and posting reflecting that both the posting and the mailings were done on the 6th of May, 2022, and the paperwork appears to be in order.
Thank you. We have, Tim, did you
I did.
do the report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I visited the site this morning. There is a lot of construction going around, so I took a few photographs, but I'll have to be honest, between the construction and the amount of vegetation around, it's a little tight to get perspective, but the property was posted twice, in fact, street level. So that was the posting. Now I'm just looking, you'll see in our surveys, I'm just looking right up the driveway. You start to get a sense for the amount of construction activity going on, but also the topography of the property. Next photo. So now I'm standing and I'm looking at, you can see the doorway here. That is the doorway that is being squared off. You can see it in the architectural drawings on A102B. This is part of the application, not necessarily asking for approval, but perhaps forgiveness at this point, but a very modest portion of this application for sure. So the next photo also gives a better perspective of the squaring off of that. This is an area where they were removing a portion of the decking and squaring it off. You can't really get any sense for it beyond that. Next photo. Okay, so now I'm heading toward the back. I just took a quick photo to get, again, some sense for the topography, looking at the property in the back. And then the final photograph I took is standing in the back of the property and now looking back at the back of the current home. The spiral staircase and the roof deck the roof deck will be in the middle of the spiral staircase will end up going to the right side of this photograph. Neither of those that I could see had been completed at this point. And I think that's it, Tyler. Yep.
Any questions for Tim, board members?
No.
Thank you. Rick, that was yours. How are you, Rick?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Richard Whalen from Landmarks, in this case, representing the applicant 43 Sandpiper LLC. I also have here, in case any questions arise, I do have with me Mazia Baruz of MB Architecture. He's the architect on the project. The background to the application is, first of all, I also visited the property today, and I pretty much did the same tour that Member Brenneman did. So it's an existing 2-story residence, a partial 1-story to the south side. This is a relatively large lot. Although we call this area Beach Hampton, it's actually, strictly speaking, not a Beach Hampton subdivision map. This was a map of Sea Bluffs back in 1957, and these lots are close to an acre in size. This one in particular is 39,088 square feet. The original house was built in 1985, was approved by the zoning board. That's shortly after natural resources special permits were created. There was an addition built in 1992, also approved by the zoning board. And the work that's going on in the project right now is pursuant to a building permit issued in October 2020. The wetland is relatively small, but it's there. I could actually could see it through the shrubbery when I visited the site today. It straddles the north property line. The house, I would note, is offset a bit to the south portion of the property. There is an in place and intact a project limiting fence and state silt fence between the north side of the work zone or the house and the wetland. 3 minor things are for which natural resources special permit and or variances are needed. 2 of them are actually done. First of all, as Member Brenneman indicated, there was a bump out, if you will, a circular, semicircular deck to the right of the entry door, and that was removed. That was part of the plan to remove it. It has been removed, and when you remove it, you would have to change the front door, because otherwise the front door would be at an angle, and there's maybe not enough room even to open it. So the front door, that angle was taken out, so the front door now faces directly towards the top of the steps when you press the steps and go onto the little front deck. That's about 10 or 11 square feet in increase in the gross floor of the house. It's on the first floor. There's already a second floor above it, so it has no impact on either the footprint of the house or really even the envelope, if you will. By the way, if you want to understand that change, the best place to show that, and better than the survey really is, there's a drawing in Maziar's plans, drawing ZBA A-102A. And if you had the full sheet, that's 33 pages, that's the 11th sheet. But sheet A-102A shows the formerly curved deck that has been removed, and it shows how it shows in grayscale the squaring off of the front entrance. Again, extremely minor, 10 or 11 square feet, 10 square feet according to the building plans. The other proposed improvement is a roof deck of 275 square feet. That would use spiral access stairs that would come up from the top of the roof of the 1-story portion of the building. So this is at the south side, kind of the southerly end of the residence. The roof deck, it's pretty obvious. The roof deck is obviously intended to get a roof, view out to the ocean. It occupies perhaps 1/6 or so of the total roof area of the second floor only. So it's far from being a complete roof deck. But it is within 81 feet as the crow flies of the wetland. So it's within the 100-foot wetland setback, although you would not actually be able to see the roof deck from the wetlands because the bulk of the northern portion of the house is in the way. So those are the improvements. Again, the access, the roof deck itself is 275 square feet. I don't have a square footage number for the access stairs, but they are shown on the survey and the building plans. In terms of variance standards, I'll just hit them quickly. I think the front door change is really probably de minimis. These improvements don't have an undesirable effect on the character of the neighborhood. The front door change is so small, and you can't even see it off site. The roof deck, I just want to point out, it's on the southern part of the roof, second floor roof, also centrally located. It doesn't extend either out to the west or out to the east. It's going to provide a view south. The nearest house in that direction, there's only really one in that direction. It's 54 Sandpiper Lane. It's on the ocean, and it's about 300 feet almost due south of the proposed roof deck. Can the benefits be sought by any other method other than area variance? In both cases, no. The existing house is almost entirely within the 100-foot wetland setback, so we are where we are. I will point out again, the roof deck is as far away from the wetlands as it can be on the second floor roof. I don't think the variance is sort of substantial. The roof deck itself needs a 19-foot variance from a 100-foot requirement, but it has no actual impact on wetlands whatsoever. And again, it's not even line of sight to the wetlands. The entry door change does need a 39-foot wetland setback variance, but again, given the area of it, the fact that it's occupying an existing deck and has an existing second floor above it, I would believe that that's a de minimis variance. Again, I don't think there's any physical or environmental impact caused to the environment. These structures are all being built on existing structures. Nothing is being built on the ground. Decking was removed, so that actually in that respect, there was a reduction in the footprint of the building. And finally, why did we apply for variances rather than seek to comply with the town code? Again, the changes in question, the structures in question could not be added to this house without needing a wetland variance because the entire structure is within 100 feet of the wetlands. So that's all I have. If you have any questions.
I mean, Rick, I don't have any really questions on the proposed, except for I want to maybe discuss a little bit the project limiting fence and the placement of that, so that we're very in the staging of construction and construction activities, so that none of the dune lands that are there, because this is pristine dunes, are damaged. So I just want to, maybe you can discuss what anticipation is there.
I didn't look too carefully around on the south side. I mean, I went to the south side. I wasn't really looking for the impact on the dune so much. I thought it was a pretty compact building area. On the north side, I'll step over there in a moment, but I will show you where the project link fence and the silt mesh fence is located. It's actually pretty much.
We're on the clear one?
Yeah, it's a bit north of, a little bit north of that red line. So it's actually in the shrubbery. It's right at the edge. It's a few feet into the brush. Well, actually, I guess, here and here. And the wetland is, I think, about here. And that's a pretty accurate photograph. I thought that they were, because it was a little, it was a little bit difficult walking around on the site because you had to go in between the building and, whatever building materials were there. I thought they were, kind of keeping to a pretty compact area in terms of what they were disturbing. But again, I wasn't really looking so much in terms of, impact on the wetlands. That's all, to my knowledge, has been approved, and hopefully the building department is supervising the work site.
Just a little bit confused. Is there an open building permit on it?
Issued in October 2020.
For what?
I have a copy. Do I have a copy?
So the building permit was issued without an NRSP?
That I don't know. I wasn't engaged at that time. Mazio may have some information, but there's a building permit for all the work that's going. It's a lot of the building permit. Actually, I have the building card. Hold on. The building card summarizes it for you. So the building permit was issued on October 6, 2020. It includes demolition of decking, 148 square foot deck, 484 square foot deck, and a 673 square foot overhang. Build a new 435 square foot deck, 846 square foot second floor deck, and install a new Fuji Clean IA septic system.
Was that part of the 2019? I believe that was an administrative application. Was that not? Or
the building card doesn't.
I've
been told that the applicant got ZBA approval. Again, I wasn't engaged at the time. The building card, just to be clear, the building card doesn't reflect a zoning board decision. So there seems to be something missing on the.
There might have been an administrative application then. Right. Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
No.
Thank you. Tyler?
For this one. Tyler Borsak for the planning department.
Ballot Fraser, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So just to start off, what you see actually in blue on the survey, the current survey, is what was approved in 2019 as part of that administrative approval. It was just sort of changing some decking that was already there, modifying it slightly. And part of it was a revegetation of some areas that had some invasives or non-natives planted in it, which is why the fencing sort of goes around a little further than we might have proposed in this one. But if they're doing that work while doing this work, that fencing can remain as long as it's maintained properly. We don't have an issue with that. As far as the project in front of the board right now, there's really no significant impacts that we identified in the assessment. Mr. Whalen addressed everything that I would have addressed well, so I'll just make myself available for any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions?
All right, you mentioned re-veg. That'll be done after this.
Right, that was part of that administrative approval, so they'll have to have that prior to a CO to make sure that's done. It's the area sort of between the scenic easement and partially into the scenic easement and the decking.
Good. Thank you.
Any final comment?
Richard Whalen again for the applicant. Just recollecting when it was on the property, the southwestern side of the house is the area that has the most disturbance, and you'll note that's where the IA system is going. So that area did have to be dug up.
Thank you.
Okay, so in the matter of 43 Sandpiper LLC.
Sam,
Public.
want to ask Matt?
Oh, is there anybody in the
Oh,
public that
sorry.
wants to address this application?
You have 0 callers for this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And anybody in the public here?
No, doesn't seem like it.
Okay, so in the matter of 43 Sandpiper LLC at 43 Sandpiper Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map, number 300-177-1-33. I make a motion to close the public hearing. And am I clear to, yes, and to close the public record?
I'll second it.
I'll concur.
I concur as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Maziar. Good to see you. Our next public hearing is 24 Jacqueline Drive, a company at 24 Jacqueline Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-176-05-06. The size and location is 7,500 square feet at 24 Jacqueline Drive, Beach, Hampton, Section 5, Block 20, lots 53 to 55, map number 1763 in Amagansett. The description is to allow an approximately 100 square foot patio addition, 35 square foot bin, and approximately 35 square foot storage shed to remain within side yard lot line setbacks, front yard lot line setbacks, outside of the town's pyramid regulations, and within jurisdiction of dune and land and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code, and 5 variances are required for this application. Variances of 9.4 feet and 2.6 feet are required for 255-1110 of the Town Code in order to allow the existing shed to remain 0.6 feet and the bin to remain 7.4 feet from the side yard lot line, where 10-foot setbacks are required. Variances of approximately 4.5 feet and 5.5 feet are required from 255-1110 of the Town Code in order to allow the existing shed to remain approximately 25.5 feet and bin to remain approximately 24.5 feet from the front yard lot line where 30-foot setbacks are required. One variance is required of approximately 5.4 feet is required from 255-1172D of the Town Code in order to allow an existing shed to remain outside of the town pyramid regulations and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B Residence AE flood zone elevation 10 and the secret class is type 2. Council, do we have proper service of affidavit and posting? Affidavit of service and posting.
Yeah,
Backwards.
affidavit of service and posting. I can make
Excuse
the
me.
mailing.
I'm sorry, Jen. Can you actually say the whole thing with your microphone?
Yep,
Thank you.
better.
We have a affidavit of service and posting reflecting that the mailing was done on April 29th, 2022, and the posting was done on May 5th, 2022, and the paperwork appears to be in order.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant here? Hi, could you state your name and address?
Yes.
Mr.
Good
Chair.
evening, board members.
Oh, I'm sorry. Give me a second. We have to do a field report.
You're denying me my big show here.
Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
With the mic.
My apologies. Just quickly, I visited the site again this morning, and I misspoke the last hearing. This is actually the property that was posted twice, and I'll show that. So it was posted properly here, and then again here on either side of the property. This along a long run of bamboo that fronts the property along Jacqueline Drive. Next photo. So now I'm just basically a couple steps in from Jacqueline Drive on the stone driveway on our survey, and we're really looking down the northern property line, and you see the fencing there, and the shadows on either side of the fencing here are in fact the sheds or bins. I think we'll call them sheds for this. It'll make it easier. Next photo. Okay, so now I went to the back, and this is actually around the south side. I just snapped a quick photo. At the time, I was trying to get a sense for where the actual increase in the patio was, but having reread the TAM, it's actually in the back portion of, which will be one of the next photos. So now I've just backed up, and again, now I'm to the east and looking at the patio. And then the next photo is kind of pivoted around to the side, and I believe that it would be in this area that the approximately 100-foot increase of deck that's in front of us would be here. Not deck, but patio. And next photo. All right, so now I've walked around to the northern side, and I'm taking a photo, and you can see the fence, the same fence that we had pictured earlier. Along the right side there is the shed in question, which sits, I think, based on the application, something like 7 or 8 inches from the property line. And then you can also see the other shed in question on the left side. And then the final photo is just a little more clear photo of the other shed on the up against the house. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Now we have the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Maura Casey, and I'm the homeowner at 24 Jacqueline Drive.
Are you an attorney?
I am, yes.
Thank you.
I am an attorney, but certainly not this kind of attorney. So this is all new to me.
It all matters whether I swear you in or not.
Oh, okay. So my family bought this house in 1970s. And the reason that my father always told us that he bought it was because of the dune. And we're all about keeping the dune. We're one of the few properties down there that have the whole backyard is a big sand dune. And so I totally believe in what you guys are doing and what, how important this is for East Hampton. However, I think in this case, it's a very the permit is needed for a very small portion of the patio. Most of the patio is not infringing at all on the dune, and as I say, we still have a very large dune. We still have a lot of the natural vegetation that was there when they bought the house, in keeping with the property. And as far as the bins, sheds, or whatever we're going to call them, one of them, the one closest to the house, covers the heating system. And that was always located there. And the other shed is for beach chairs and garden supplies, and was also there when we purchased the house. And I know that's not an excuse or anything, but my point in bringing that up is that there has not been any complaints by any property owner in all these years that it's been there since the 1970s. And just thinking about the purpose of zoning laws and how they affect other property owners, you can't really see that. Well, I shouldn't say you can't see it from the street, but it's not obtrusive. It doesn't really, and the property owner on the other side, it doesn't really affect them. They can't see it. The property owner on the one side where the shed is happens to be a family member, as my brother owns the house. So he has no objection to it. And I don't think it affects anyone else. And the as I say, the special permit request for the patio is in the back of the house, and it doesn't really affect anyone. I think that we've really tried to maintain the house in keeping with the dunes, and that's why we love it down there. And but I'd ask that, and there's really no other place on the property that we could put either of these bins or sheds, because if you put them on the other side of the house, you'd still have the same setback issue. And if you can't build on the sand dune at all, obviously we can't build on that at all. So we can't put it in the backyard. So we're left with the front of the house. And I don't think that's so conducive. And that would be much more of an eyesore to any potential neighbors. And I think that would be much more objectionable. So there really is no other place to locate this. And the existing patio also, was, I believe it was put in when the house was renovated, possibly in the 80s. And it's part of an existing other part of the patio. And I believe, I don't know why there was extra space there. I think it's because there's a table there for dining. So, do you have any other, I ask that you grant us the variances and give us the natural resources permit so we can leave the existing bins and patio as is and as they have been for many, many years.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I'll start. So this board has a history of requiring homeowners to move movable sheds into compliance. And I was going to ask you to explain why you were asking for the variance. You just did that. However, any decision that we make stays with the property. So it runs with the land. And even though today your neighbor is your brother, and I'm sure it's okay, if we were to approve this, then we're approving this for the future as well. And that shed is very, very close to the property line. So again, I don't want to make you repeat yourself, but the explanation you just gave addresses what I'm asking, which is if the shed is movable and can be relocated somewhere to a less non-conforming area, why won't you do that?
I believe I answered that. There is no place on the property that it can be. As they say, we can't put it in the sand dune because we can't build on that and have the shed there. And the other side of the house, we have this around the same amount of space. It would be about, it would be near it would violate the setback against the property on that side. And if it makes any difference, I understand you make decisions long-term and anyone can sell a house at any point. These two houses are tied up for quite a long time. for children and grandchildren. That's just the way they were set up. And I know, things can happen and things could be, changed, and then there could be a different property owner, but they pretty much tied up to stay in our family for quite some time, if that makes any difference.
Yeah. No. I have a couple of questions about these sheds as well. You said that one of them is covering a heating system. Can you describe what's underneath that? Is that you're talking about an air conditioning units, or what's
No,
under
it's a hot air blowing system. I should know more about what it is, but it's
an externally mounted
Seen these
furnace.
before. It's probably
Yeah.
insulated and all that stuff, right?
Right.
Yes.
It's an insulated.
yes.
So that part, and that goes back to when? That goes back to the 70s. You're saying?
As far as I know, the bin was there. We've changed the heating system, but it was just replaced the same place where it was.
Right.
But it was always there. As far as I was a child when my parents bought the house, but it was always there as far as I can remember. And it's an old structure. It looks pretty old.
And in reference to the shed that Member Brenneman just discussed with you, that shed is also there since 1973. Is that what you're saying? That
I
shed has been
believe,
there for
and
50
the reason
years?
I'm saying that is because in the 1990s, my parents did do an application to try to straighten this out because it came up somehow. And in that, they said that it was there when they purchased the house. So that's where I'm getting that information. I wouldn't personally, I know it was there but I was a young person at that time. So.
One last thing about the patio, is that also, I'm just trying to get an idea of the dating on all of this. You've said that all of this more or less pre-existed your particular ownership, but it's been in the family. So that extra 100-foot of patio is not in a more recent addition. That's part of the original installation of the patio?
No, I believe that could have been part of the addition that was done in either like the late 70s or early 80s.
Okay, so you're saying that all of this goes and predates sometime. You're thinking this basically is back in the 70s for the work that we're looking at.
Yes, there hasn't been any work done since those, those additions.
Well, going back to the same bin that Member Brenneman talked about, it looks, and maybe the planner can advise us that looks like there are alternatives on the property.
I'm
That
sorry.
don't intrude on the dune. For that bin again. Just looking at the survey, and I said maybe the planner can elaborate on that. It does look like there are alternative locations that could improve on the nonconformity or eliminate it on the property in the back.
But there's a sand dune in the back. There's a patio and then the sand
There's a
dune.
brick, all the brick patio. Could it be put on top of the brick? Just look,
I don't know that, I don't think that, I think that the size of the shed, I don't think it would fit on the patio. There's also like the lattice work there, and then you'd have to put it next to that, and I think you would impinge on the dune.
On the south side, you're saying, if you relocated it there, you would impact the dune
Right.
on the brick.
I think the length of it would go into the dune. I don't think there's enough space there. I didn't come with my measurements because I didn't anticipate that question, but
Well, if it did that, you would eliminate a pyramid variance, and I think that's troubling to us, is that there's a pyramid variance. If you can move it in, that would,
well, how would I eliminate it? Because it would be the same height.
be away from the property line.
You would move it.
move it a little away from the property line.
Right.
Wouldn't put it on the property line.
Okay. But so it would have to be 10 feet in from the property line.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it looks.
Or
like
you
looking at
improve the
survey
location
line.
and get rid of a variance. I mean, that's something that has to be shown or proven or disproven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving it would definitely help with the pyramid variance that you're looking for.
It still
Whether
might
or
not,
it would be far enough from.
Or side yard setbacks.
setback. Yeah, that's something else, but the pyramid violation certainly could be helped by moving the shed. We were on the site as well, and I see how tight it is, and I understand exactly what you're saying. But the fact is, as was pointed out by Member Brenneman, that these decisions are in perpetuity, and we always have to take into consideration that the next owner might say, how did anyone allow this to happen to us, that we'd had somebody right on our property line? So it's always a consideration when we're discussing these things.
Understood.
the question I have, I don't know if you can answer this. This might be for the planning department, and it has to do with the clearing. Tyler, the survey, and we'll wait for Tyler to come up. The survey says allowed is 100%. Existing is 3686. How can this with a dune land be 100% allowed?
Maybe we should.
It's a good question, right? But maybe, I mean, maybe in terms of that, would you be, we got to get that answer, but maybe we would be looking for, would you be opposed to having a covenant that no further clearing would be done, that we would fix that clearing in perpetuity?
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
Right now, the existing clearing is 3586. That's the clearing on the property.
You mean the clearing for the backyard?
The total clearing
Okay.
is 3,686 square feet. We would like not to see that. You've done a good job preserving the dune in the back. We recognize that. We want to see that protected so that even nobody else comes and decides to clear further. Even though I don't understand why the survey says 100% cleared allowed, but we don't want to see that dune. We want to protect that dune in perpetuity.
So what does that mean, 100%
Maybe-
clear? I mean, somebody could build on the dune? Put something on
Well,
the
again,
dune?
maybe we can get Tyler. Would you? Maybe we get Tyler up and he can speak to that.
Understanding we cannot
It's
build on-
confusing to
put
me because I've
anything
never
on the
seen
dune.
I've never seen this before.
You could have an opportunity to
Yeah.
comment again after Tyler
Okay.
speaks. So we can-
It's pre-existing.
Hi, Tyler.
Evening, Tyler
You're
Borsak,
sworn in
Planning
already.
Department again. Yes. I'll just go right ahead to answer the question about that. The 100% clearing, excuse me, is because this is not in harbor protection or water recharge. It's just standard clearing regulations as far as the town is concerned. So you could clear up to 100% if you received a natural resource special permit in order to do so. It wouldn't require a variance to do that because the lot is so small. So if your lot's less than 11,000 square feet, if you're not in water recharge or harbor protection, you can clear up to 100%. But that goes for any lot in town. Obviously, this property is unique in that it has beach vegetation, so it then comes before the board. But as far as the town code is concerned, they could potentially do that without needing a variance. So that's where that number comes from.
Yeah.
Sometimes surveyors will say 100% allowed. Sometimes they'll
Mostly, you
natural
mostly
resource
say
special
100%
permit required.
pre-existing cleared.
Right. Yeah, there is the potential that they could do that legally, but they would need a special permit in order to then do so. That's where that comes from.
All right, go ahead.
Sure.
Sorry.
So this parcel is located on the east side of Jacqueline Drive in Amagansett. The project before the board is to allow the existing patio addition to remain within jurisdiction of dune land and beach vegetation, and to allow an existing shed to remain within side and front yard lot line setbacks, and a bin to remain outside of the town's pyramid regulations. The Beach Hampton area is composed of numerous non-conforming lots. The parcel in question is of substandard size for B residential zoning district, as are most other lots within the Beach Hampton area. The addition made to the patio at the rear of the parcel measures approximately 100 square feet from what the planning department can determine, and it's sort of that easternmost kick out there on the edge of the existing patio. It appears that extension was added to the existing patio some point after the 1995 ZBA application that was submitted, and that application was submitted. Those two bins existed at that time, which is what that application was for, was to get those approved. It was incomplete, and then no additional information was supplied, so it didn't go anywhere, and just sort of fizzled out at that point.
Excuse me, what was the
What
date
year
of
was
that?
that? Yeah.
What was the date that you just said? That
1995.
Thank you.
At its widest point, the additional patio measures approximately 5 feet further east compared to the patio that had existed, and appears that this area had always had some amount of clearing or at least limited vegetation. The location of the 2 bins on the north side of the property had previously been disturbed and either improved with the existing patio or had been cleared prior to natural resources zoning regulations. There is some duneland topography at the rear of the parcel, although none of that topography appears to have been disturbed in the construction that has taken place on the property. The shed closest to the northern property line is located only 0.6 feet from the property line with a small fence behind it. The shed measures approximately 6 feet tall, 12 feet long, and 3 feet wide. The shorter shed against the residence measures approximately 7 feet by 5 feet and is located on an existing brick patio. The northern shed is the most impactful two of the structures to the neighboring properties, as it is practically located on the property line and is extremely non-conforming to both side yard setbacks as well as pyramid regulations. The other shed is a fairly small structure located against the existing residence. The board should discuss the northern shed in order to determine its impact on the neighboring property and also the precedent of allowing a shed to remain so extremely non-conforming to the property line on a parcel that is very similar to other properties in the Beach Hampton area. The board should handle similar applications similarly, and it may be difficult to determine this, excuse me. It may be difficult to differentiate this parcel from others in the neighborhood if similar applications come forward for sheds extremely close to the lot lines. Other than that, I think I answered any questions you might have, but I'll make myself available for any.
I'm particularly interested in the same questions I asked the applicant, and that is, you feel comfortable in saying that the 2 sheds existed in their locations prior to the adoption of current codes? And do these go back to the 70s?
The earliest aerials that we had that we could see them in was 1988. I included those in the existing conditions memo. I can bring them up on the screen. It's very fuzzy, obviously back in 1988, but you can tell that there are structures there.
Yeah.
So they probably date back quite a while. Yes.
Right.
And they tried to get them approved in 95. So at least at that point, we know it was on a survey at that point.
And that just got dropped, that request back?
Yeah, it was deemed incomplete and then no additional information was submitted. So it didn't go anywhere.
So is there an alternative place for the northern bin, the one that's close to the property line?
I mean, it's approximately 12 feet long. They could potentially put it where the planter is located against the house if they wanted to push it away from the side yard lot line. Maybe behind the house. Again, I'm not certain on like where windows are located against the house. So where, it's feasible and where is practical are two sort of separate things. But certainly there seems to be room on the existing patio.
Well, I'm sorry. Just wondering if there's any suggestion of it.
What is your feeling on the suggestion of a covenant on the clearing?
It certainly limits them in the future if they want to redevelop the parcel. I don't know if that's a concern for the board. Limiting to this amount of clearing. The rear of the property is the most intact vegetation they have, obviously, since everything is sort of pushed to the front of the property. As it is now, they would probably need a front yard variance for a lot of the structures that are there. The patio needs to be, if it's an accessory structure, it's 30-foot setback from the front, and a house is 20 feet. I think they're like 19. So they're just within front yard setbacks. The patio definitely is in front yard setbacks. But
certainly if they wanted to expand, they could expand over the brick patio too.
Or they could maintain the amount of clearing they have and revegetate after the fact or something along those lines. Maintaining a similar footprint just in a more conforming location. That's an option for if they were to redevelop.
Right.
Which is a big if. Although in some point in the future it will happen.
Thank you. Would you consider doing a covenant on no increase in clearing as a mitigation?
I couldn't make that decision tonight because I barely understand what that means. I think you're saying that there would be no additional
Clearing of the existing vegetation.
on the entire property. front, back, side,
I
everywhere?
think we're mostly concerned about the
Yeah, we're
backside.
concerned about the rear.
Well, that's a total number though, so yeah, I guess it'd be the whole
It
property.
still probably looks like it looks like most of the lot anyway. It's a good question.
It just seems like a pretty strong thing to agree on, just ad hoc. I don't think I could agree to that tonight. I definitely like to discuss it further if that's, something that's important and, we don't plan on developing it anymore, but I really want to, like, as they say, your decisions go on forever, so this decision would also, and I don't know if I feel comfortable doing
No
that.
matter what they did, they would have to come to a NRSP anyway.
That's right.
Exactly, that's what I kind of understand.
Thank
yes.
you. No, thank you.
Anybody in the public?
Anybody in the public, Matt?
You have 0 callers for this application. Thank you.
Anybody in the public here for this application? Thank you.
Okay, we're good to close?
Yes.
Yes. So in the matter of 24 Jacqueline Drive Company at 24 Jacqueline Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-176-5-6, I make a motion to close the public hearing and the public record.
I'll second that.
Concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next hearing is George and Susan Polsky at 133 Waters Edge in Springs, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-083-07-53.1. The size and location is 46,482 square feet at 133 Waters Edge in Springs. The description is the in-place reconstruction of 146 linear feet of bulkhead and 14 feet return at the southern end, the construction of a new 14-foot return on the northern end of the property, and the construction of a beach access ladder from the bulkhead on a parcel of land containing coastal bluffs, beaches, and tidal surface waters. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the town code. The zoning district is A2 residence, VE velocity, and X flood zones. See if the class is type 2. Council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
We have an affidavit of service and posting reflecting a mailing date of May 5th, 2022, and a posting date of May 6th, 2022, and the paperwork appears to be in order.
Thank you. Excuse me? Okay, Matt, is the agent on the phone?
We have 0 callers and everybody's in the Zoom link as needed.
There's nobody in the Zoom link? Oh, there are people in Zoom?
No, everybody's in Zoom and there's no callers.
Okay, so the agent will be on Zoom, is that right?
The agent did not request the Zoom link from myself or from Laura.
Is there anybody on Zoom?
No.
Other than
No,
us.
okay, so they're not.
No,
We don't have an applicant here.
does not appear that you do.
Here.
Christine has reached out, but no response yet.
So we move on to the next one?
Do we close this then? You opened it? Or you read it in? I don't know formally if you have to close it.
you don't,
Protocol standpoint, do we close
protocol
the hearing?
standpoint, Brian and I were just conferring on this. You can certainly do your presentation. The applicants, they've submitted their paperwork. You have an affidavit of service and posting. It'd be nice to hear from an agent if there are questions about the project, but you can proceed in your presentation. Brian can proceed with the planning department
Why
and
don't we do that?
give that a shot.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay. So we do have a proper affidavit of
we
service?
do. And,
Okay,
you have a
thank you.
complete application and it was submitted very recently. So maybe there was some sort of emergency.
Great. So I did, this is my field report. Tyler? Okay, I was there today and there was proper posting. Now, as I walk into the lot, Brian, the first house on the left, that's Simkins?
When you're on the common driveway,
Yeah, the common driveway.
I'd need the aerial to confirm.
No, that's that big one.
You're gonna go past Simkins before you get to.
That's correct. That's correct. All right. So I'm going to walk down a common driveway. This is the Simkins property as you're looking at it. And I'm going to walk in. Actually, when I walked in here, I was a little bit disoriented. So I did actually, it looks like it's part of it, like a compound properties. So I do walk around the Simkins property and I end up walking down that stairway and along the bulkhead. So I'm going to basically complete a big circle. So you get a picture of what's going on. And next. All right, this is the entry into the backyard of the Simkins property. And again, this is the backyard. If you remember, go ahead, Brian, you can hit, I'll breeze through these quickly. That's taking a look over, and you're going to see, I'm going to do a little a pan to the left. So that's looking at the neighbor to the south. Looking at the bluff and the beach vegetation of Simkins. And again, that's the panning more towards the north. Looking at bluff vegetation, I did see a sprinkler in there, but I just took notice of it. Go ahead. Now that's a passway to that shared, you remember the bulkhead restoration we had. This is the stairway going down toward that one. Go ahead. That's the stairway. It looks like a relatively new stairway. I walk down. I know at the bottom of that staircase, this is the new bulkhead recently done. And you can see that I'm going to walk along this bulkhead over towards the Polsky bulkhead that is part of this application. Now you can see this photo is at the transition of the new versus the one that's the wood one that's proposed to be replaced. Brian, you're going to help me out here because the returns, I don't understand the returns. It seems like there's two returns on either side of this that seem to be relatively good condition. So, but we can address that in a little bit.
Sure.
I'll just point them out as I go. So I'm going to go ahead, next photo. That's the staircase coming down from the Polsky residence. And again, walking along this bulkhead, and there's a return down there. And the bulkhead beyond that is relatively new too. And it looked like this return is relatively new to me. So, or in decent shape. So again, we can clarify that. Go ahead. And then looking back, this is where the TAM talks about the difference in height between the two bulkheads, but I didn't see a difference in height between the two bulkheads to the north of theirs and to the north. So we'll talk about that. Now I'm back on top of that Polsky stair looking down, absolutely stunning viewpoint. You can see Cartwright Shoals in the distance there. Now, this is the the top of the bluff and the buffer, and the TAM says it was pretty much cleared up to the bluff crest. It looks like they started to allow it to grow and be unmowed for a time. So we'll see that. Go ahead. Again, looking at just part of that, the neighboring vegetation. And now I'm walking past outside the rest of them, completing my circle. That's it. That back out the common drive. You got a pretty tour of it.
Well, I would have a
We
question.
don't, go ahead.
I have a question for you, and that is that as you described the bulkhead you were looking at, you were saying it looked like it was fairly recently done.
The returns. Not the bulkhead in the application, is definitely in disrepair.
Okay,
Definitely in disrepair.
The neighboring.
neighboring was
Yeah,
fine.
the
Yeah,
neighboring
I
one.
thought it continued though. Okay.
Okay, Brian, you might as well come on up.
Good evening, board members. Brian Frank, Chief Environmental Analyst for the East Hampton Planning Department.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
It's been very infrequent over the years where we've had hearings that haven't had the applicants present, but it has happened a couple of times where the applicants have provided affidavits of service and posting, and the application was straightforward enough that it was worth proceeding with the hearing without the applicant doing a presentation, and this might be one of those circumstances. The Polsky property, as Chair Deline had mentioned, is immediately adjoining two properties that the board reviewed in 2021 for bulkhead reconstructions. The agent is the same. The construction protocol is the same. The mitigation that the planning department recommended is almost identical. There's a difference in the buffer at the top, which I'll touch on as part of the history of the property. I haven't had any discussion with First Coastal about their objection to any of the permit conditions that we've recommended. I don't want to be too presumptuous, but again, they're largely very similar to what was done with the adjoining property just to the south. So this is at the north end of Accabonac Cliffs. The properties are built landward of the bluff crest. The bluff crest in this area is at least 60 feet above sea level. Maybe it's even more as you go farther north. The bluff face is very, very steep. I'm sure you got a workout going up,
Great,
up those
I ran
stairs. You ran them.
Yeah.
I did not. But anyway, it's a long, steep descent down to the top of the bulkhead. And what we had discussed in the Simkins and the adjoining property of the south was Savage in those applications is that this is an extensive run of either bulkheaded or a combination of bulkhead with stone armor, and then the southern part is just stone armor. But all of these erosion control structures have roughly the same top of bulkhead elevation of about 8 feet above sea level. The Simkins and Savage applications originally had included an 18-inch height increase of the bulkhead that really would have put it at a stark difference to the adjoining properties. The planning department and the board asked for them to maintain the existing height, and I think that's why this application was submitted with no height increase. The property to the north of Polsky underwent a bulkhead reconstruction. I could look it up to be sure, but around 2014. And that's why as you went north of, so you take a look at Polsky, and if you noticed in Chair Deline's photos, you see an older CCA bulkhead with CCA timber pilings. And what you saw in Simkins and Savage were larger diameter, I think 8-inch Greenheart untreated timber pilings. The whalers are also untreated hardwood, and the bulkhead, the bulkhead sheathing is vinyl. You see the same general parameters on the property to the north, a new vinyl. I could look up the specs, but a lot of them use C-lock. They kind of slide interlocking sheathing panels. The thickness goes based on where they're located. A lot of them are what they call C500 or C1000, a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier duty material. And the pilings are also untreated timber to the north. The reason that you see two returns on the property now is Simkins had a new return at their northern property line, and the property to the north had a new or a replaced return at their southern property line. So there is a return, a CCA return on Polsky, I believe, that's partially buried, and they're proposing a new return on the northern property line. So it is a little bit of belt and suspenders to have each property have their own return, but it gives, while you're digging that out and you're doing that excavation, it's a pretty efficient way to add to it. It's not that much more material or labor. So you're 100% correct. There are new returns out there. They happen to be on the neighboring properties to each side. So the construction protocol, just like Savage, material really has to come in from barge. You can imagine they're not bringing new bulkhead sheathing or 8-inch diameter pilings down that staircase on the Polsky property. This is an area that does have a timber groin field. Groins are prohibited from being reconstructed in the town code. The board had a permit condition against doing any repair or replacement of the timber groins in both the Simkins and Savage property. The same protocol would apply to, or the same permit condition rather, should apply to Polsky. The permit conditions are mirrored. Member Delene's photos are really exemplary because you see the new bulkhead, you see the new beach grass planting, you can see the coir log that was installed at the toe of the bluff, and they're proposing something similar here. So it is, there are very few unknowns in the planning department's opinion about this project. This property did have an application around 2010 for a new residence on the property, and that did require a 20-foot vegetated buffer from the top of the bluff crest. Zoning board file record shows that there was a point where that buffer was established. It was woody vegetation, coastal plants, bayberry, beach plum. I think there were some small trees in there, some red cedar, but that has been removed over the past few years, and the planning department would recommend the reestablishment of that buffer prior to the issuance of a permit to replace the bulkhead. That really should be corrected before new work goes on the shoreline. Obviously, a buffer at the top of the property does not impede shoreline access by a barge to reconstruct the bulkhead. So it really should be done. I don't know how it got removed, and it doesn't matter, but it really should be corrected. I have other photos here of the shoreline if you're interested, but member, they're not better than the chairman. So
it was day. It was a beautiful day.
So I don't really think my photographs contribute much that's not in the record. I do have the aerial photograph here if you wanted to see anything from, but even Roy's photo from the top of the bluff, looking out at towards Cartwright. It's probably better than.
And it was fully up above water. It was low tide, so it was beautiful.
So I'm happy to answer any questions that the members might have, if I can.
Typically, something like this would be administrative, would that not?
It was, and we had considered this, and there was a concern expressed by a board member for proceeding administratively, and we have to respect that, and that's why we're here at a hearing.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
The buffer in 2010, that in the TAM it says 25, you just said 20. Was that just?
I'm sorry, did I get the year wrong or the size of the buffer?
The buffer.
She said the TAM says 25.
TAM says 25, and I think you said 20.
I apologize.
25?
Yes, 25 feet.
Okay.
My mistake.
No other question.
So if there was an approval in this particular application, that 25-foot buffer would have to be reestablished because that was the previous.
I think you could argue that buffer has to be reestablished irrespective of whether they go forward. But if they want to do work, this is the time to get, unfortunately, that's the best way to get compliance is when somebody wants to do something on their property. They have a little extra motivation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't got a representative of the applicant here, and it should be very clear that any decision that comes in the future includes that reestablishment of the buffer, because it's going to, any decision we would make, if it was possible to get an approval, that they would have to have that done. I know that seems obvious, but it seems to me that they ought to know that. They're not here to discuss it tonight, so.
That is true.
They have time to.
It would be a condition. Thank you. Any questions?
I don't think so. I remember the prior two applications, and it's comforting to
Yeah.
know that this is very similar and same agent and protocol.
The conditions that we see in the previous two, very positive. I mean, there was a very good look to what the chair's photos were of the conditions as were done on the other two projects. So if they're coming in with a very similar approach with a similar team, that's certainly an encouragement.
Agreed. I think that the planning department would be satisfied if the work comes out looking like the adjoining properties to the south.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just-
The public?
Is there anybody in the public, Matt?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you. Nobody here for this application. Thank you.
Just a word on procedure for the board. If you do want some feedback from the applicant, we could certainly, or the board could certainly leave the record open briefly for a week, just in case there was an incident or emergency.
Personally, I don't.
Yeah, I don't see.
I don't.
Up to you.
Thank you. That's a good point. Everybody okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
So therefore, I make a motion to close the public hearing, the public record for George and Susan Polsky at 133 Waters Edge in Springs at Suffolk Tax Act number 300-083-07-53.1.
Second that.
I concur.
I concur.
Thank you. Our next public hearing is Dante Britis at 330 Gerard Drive, Springs at Suffolk Tax Map number 300-064-01-18. The size and location is, the applicant is Dante Britis. The size and location is 24,636 square feet at 330 Gerard Drive, Springs. The description is to renovate an existing one-story residence and construct 502 square foot of one-story and two-story additions with 223.9 square foot of first and second floor decking, a pergola, an outdoor shower on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit, NRSP, pursuant to 255-420, variances from 255-440, minimum wetland setbacks of the town code, and any other relief necessary. The following wetland setback variances are required. 1 and 2 variances of 41 foot are required to construct the closest of the additions and the outdoor shower 59 foot from wetlands. A 66-foot variance is required to construct the pergola 34 foot from wetlands, and 4 40-foot variance is required to construct the closest of the decking 60 feet from wetlands where 100-foot setback is required for structures. The zoning district is A2 residence, AE flood zone elevation 8, and X flood zone. Secret class is type 2. Council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
We have an affidavit of service and posting reflecting that a mailing was done on May 4th, 2022, and the posting was done on May 4th, 2022. The affidavit is actually missing the matter of the application title. However, it was accompanied by a cover letter that identified same, so it's satisfied.
Thank you. Member Berger did the field report on this.
Yes, and Tyler, this is Tyler's? Okay. Okay. All right, well, it was officially noticed and posted and properly. It's at the end of Gerard Drive. This is the last developed property on that road. And this is a shot from across the street going up you can see on the survey, the long, narrow driveway, which is shared right about where I parked the car there. There is another house to the right there, which is not the applicants. The applicants is beyond that. I'm going to go up there. This is just a shot of everything to the south of this is town-owned property or preserved property, and you can see all the way down to the beach. And next, just a shot up the other way. Next. And that's a shot that shows you the beach area. You can see there are cars up there. That's where the garage drive ends. That point. And I'm going to go up the driveway. This is a shot of the house next to the applicant's house that shares the driveway. Next. And this is the applicant's house that I'm approaching now. And the property line, as you can see, goes to the northerly direction from just beyond those trees pretty much. Next. That's just another distant, closer shot actually of the applicant's home. And again, you can kind of see where the property line sort of follows around that tree line, and there's a kayak or boat that was over there. Next. Well, this is shot, there's blue on this gravel, and I think this is indicating where the IA system is proposed to go, part of the location there. See, it's on the southern part of the property there. Next. That's just, there was some more blue markers that didn't come out well in this one, but it's that same area and on the south side of the house where that's proposed, and some more of that area, the vegetation there. Okay, now this is a full shot of the side of the house, the southern side. And we're going to walk around the house. We're going to go down to the harbor side. This is a shot of the line that runs along the harbor and the south end, and going to go up there. Next, that's more of the length of that. It's the area where the wood deck and part of the pergola. Sorry, go back. All right, go forward. All right, that seems out of order, but it's a shot from that decking back there toward the harbor, showing the vegetation and toward the wetlands. Next. And a little bit more of that on a more northerly direction. Next. And now I'm at that the northwest corner, and you can see the existing shed that is there now, the shed under the deck, and that is proposed to remain with the application. Next. And this is the north side of the house. Now you can see there's a little bump out area up to, I believe it's where those stairs begin for the proposed one-story addition. There's a small bump out. And the second-story addition is proposed to go from there northerly down to the southern end of the existing property, the existing house. Next. And that's another shot of, I turned toward Gerard Drive. There's another house you can see back there. It's another neighbor's home. Next. There's on the survey, there's a pin marked on the survey, and Vice Chair Johan was with me, so he's standing just to the right of that pin, just to show you how far that's located from the northern side rather of the house. Next. And it's a shot from the north looking south on the other side of the house, the property line there. You can see a little bit of that kayak and boat that kind of delineates the property line between the neighbor and the applicant's home. I think that's it. Well, another shot of the home from the Gerard Avenue side. That's it. Is that it?
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Thank you. Andy? How are you, Andy?
I'm doing well. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Richard A. Hammer from Biano and Hammer here tonight. I'm representing Dante Brittis, who's actually here with me as well. Also, Joel Halsey from my office is one of the callers online. I forget the exact last four numbers, but he is available should there be any questions. As a preliminary matter, with the board's approval, I wanted to submit a letter I received today from the engineer. It's basically a discussion of IA systems and how they work. I thought it was more informative and would be a very good thing to have in the board's file, and I can go through it orally with you, just as a to kind of fill down what it says.
Is this relative to this particular hearing?
Yes.
Who's it from, Ed?
It's from David Rhodes, the engineer. It's actually very interesting.
Could you give Laura one more copy for the
She did,
member
I think.
that's not here tonight?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think, Terry did a very good site inspection. I'm very familiar with the Girard Drive area, grew up the road and spent a lot of time there. Dante, the owner, he's the beneficial owner, as I'll explain, is also a friend of mine. I'm basically teaching him how to fish, or he's teaching me how to fish.
The bluefish are right there right now.
So, that's outside of the board's application, but it is an important issue for me. I did review the TAM tonight. There are certain issues that I can't dispute and some that I would dispute, as I'll explain tonight. This is an interesting property. I have a copy of our DEC permit. I don't know if this is in the board's file, but I can submit that if it is, and I believe it was submitted. So we do have our DEC permit. This property is not located in a flood zone, or at least where the residence is in its zone X. FEMA rules would allow the addition to be constructed without foundation change or requirements, or otherwise having any other additional FEMA issues. We are requesting no pyramid or other dimensional variances other than the wetland setback variances you'll see in the application tonight. One thing that's unique about this is actually a relatively large property for Girard Drive as a whole at 24,000 square feet of deeded area. That being said, if you review the survey, the wetlands along the western half of the property reduce its lot areas defined under the town code to about 17,000 square feet. And the building envelope under our current required setbacks is highly constrained. Basically, there is no conforming building envelope on the property at all. This property far predates town or DEC regulations of tidal wetlands. It was built pursuant to a 1971 or 1972 building permit. The property is actually relatively pristine. There's no clearing other than the improvements on the survey you see. You'll see it's a very tight clearing area. And this property has been a model of stewardship since it was first constructed in the 1970s. I think what is perhaps the most significant factor for the board to consider is that the British family has been the owner of this property since 1971. Dante grew up in this house. His family has owned this house the whole time he's been alive, or maybe a couple years that he doesn't remember. And they've loved and lived in this house for over 50 years. I can't think of any applicant that I've been in front of this board that has this type of history. And Dante's here. I was going to have him just relate a little bit more of his personal stories. The TAM does reference a transfer. Oh, it looks like it was purchased. Essentially, there were some estate planning transfers. I believe it was transferred to an LLC for the family so that the trust could, there were different members of the family that had ownership interest, and that the LLC was a way for them to have the shares owned by trusts, et cetera, et cetera. But it is the same family continuity of ownership since 1971. This really isn't some Johnny-come-lately developer looking for a quick renovation to add to their portfolio. This is a family that has cared for this property for over 50 years and probably always had the idea that it could accommodate a small addition, in this case, essentially a master bedroom on the second floor. And the proposed second floor and small first floor addition totals 502 square feet on a 1,306 square foot house. the addition is smaller than a typical two-car garage without increasing the bedroom count, and just basically repurposing some of the interior spaces and building almost entirely on top of the existing foundation. I think that repurposing provides this generation with a little more benefit that would justify the benefit of the requested variances with some small deck additions. And if you look at the plans, you'll see they're basically access additions, reconfiguration of the existing access and the stoop as you walk into the property. That's essentially what's driving the first floor additions. That's about it, and the pergola provides a little bit of shade on the existing deck area. It's as modest an application that I think could be made, and I thought a reasonable request when I first spoke to Dante about it. Of course, this property doesn't have expansive areas of lawn to give up or clearing or other types of more traditional mitigation, that we would typically use to prop it over the line. This isn't that kind of a property. Its historical stewardship didn't lend itself to this type of mitigation. The family has owned it since before there were DC or town wetland setbacks or regulations that affected it. I do believe there were some wetland regulations that predate the 1984 adoption of setbacks, but this property has basically been this way since it was first built. So I can't point to an expansive lawn and say, hey, we're going to re-veg that and create an increased wetland buffer. What we can offer, and I think it's the most important offer that we can make for these impacted water bodies, is the upgrade to the sanitary system. The existing and perfectly legal sanitary system consists of a brick cesspool with brick overflows. Frankly, a seasonal house like this probably wouldn't encounter typical failure of the system during our lifetime. The system provides no effective sewage treatment at all. And the letter I just submitted from David Rhodes, it's expected that this is in what they call a 1 to 2 year zone, meaning that effluent that is created and discharged will impact into the groundwater table within 1 to 2 years from its release. This water body, as we all know, is under stress from nitrogen loading. And I think David goes through some of the literature. It's estimated that 66% of the nitrogen load of Accabonac Harbor is from untreated septic effluents from on-site wastewater treatment. So, that's the larger proponent. Obviously, there are other contributors, lawn fertilizer, et cetera, but that's the number one and the kind of the point solution of what we're dealing with. In connection with our proposed additions, we are proposing to upgrade this to an IA system. And, what is an IA system? We talk about them all the time, but I think David does a really good analysis that I think is helpful for all applications. It provides an immediate 80% reduction in the amount of nitrogen.
Andrew, in effort of saving time, we understand what an IA system does. We do have the letter.
Okay.
I just want to, save some time here.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Read that all in.
But, I do think it is fascinating the way you read that. It removes
Thank you.
different contaminants, et cetera, pathogens, whatever. I think that letter is a very good mitigation measure, and it provides a really good discussion. I think based on the 50 years of use and occupancy, I don't think this family is going to fold up their tent and move on. I know some of the properties that the town has acquired and torn down the house. I would dispute whether or not that actually is a good use of our CPF funds without, some form of an enormous commitment from the neighbors, but that's not in front of you tonight. Basically, this house is going to continue to be enjoyed by this family as it has been for over 50 years. I think our application does qualify for a grant of an NRSP and the variances requested. I view it as a modest project that will create, even as expanded, it's about an 1,800 square foot house on a fairly large lot for the area. And I think this family will enjoy it for another 50 years and counting, basically, moving forward. Other than that, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. And Joel is also on the line.
I mean, I would, my question, the hurdle that I'm going to have to get over, and I don't think I heard you address it, is the character of the neighborhood. I mean, the character of this neighborhood, 1972, these were beach cottages, beach shanties, if you will, and probably a lot of them didn't even have heat at that time or around then. And this is now a pretty aggressive from a character of a neighborhood. And a lot has changed since 1972. You had your introduction of the NRSP in the 1980s, which really set Accabonac Harbor out as a pristine sanctuary. It's really a sanctuary. He's lived there. You know that. We all know the osprey nest. Everything that in that harbor is absolutely so pristine. So from a character of the neighborhood standpoint, that's going to be a hurdle for me to get over.
Well, as someone who grew up in the area when I was about 2 years old, I remember it's always been kind of an eclectic character of the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, the most identifiable characteristic of this neighborhood is this house. It's been there the whole time. So I think it's it's part of the iconic character of the neighborhood. There are two-story structures. I personally think if you look at the architectural plans, it's a pleasing aesthetic. And I think it's a de minimis expansion. It's probably the smallest possible expansion that you could envision that would justify this board's approval. And that's kind of what I spoke to him about, but I don't think it's going to overpower the neighborhood, even at 1,800 square feet. In the lanes, you have, a different character of the neighborhood, 36 to 4,000 square foot houses are the norm. This will still have a beach cottage appearance. And at 1,800 square feet, I don't think it's going to overpower anything in the neighborhood. I think the benefit from the upgraded sanitary system that we're offering and is going to be incorporated as part of this is probably the single most important thing you can do to continue the character of this neighborhood and to continue to make it a more pristine area than it has been in past years.
Questions, anybody?
Yeah, but with that character, all the properties around it, and I know maybe Brian will show that the overheads on there. I mean, everything around it is entirely nature preserve beach. So, and the variances are still pretty large. And I agree with our chair that it's the character of that neighborhood when you drive down there.
Well, and I can't
Say there's
dispute
some
the fact
two-story
that
houses.
the variances on this are inherent in the structure that was built in 1971. This is the same family. And I can't look back and say, geez, wouldn't it have been great if they had built a larger house? They would certainly have been entitled to from 1971 up to 1984. We're here today. And I think the importance of this water body and the importance of this upgraded sanitary system is something the board needs to seriously consider. I don't think you can penalize the applicant because there are town nature preserves. That's part of the beauty of the area and why this family has been a singular presence in it for over 50 years today and counting, basically. And granted, I also would agree, the board could say no to this, but at the end of the day, this house is going to remain and this use is going to remain. And that's something we all have to say, okay. And do I think that's the end of the world? No, but I do think that having an owner that has this stewardship history, this ownership, continuous ownership and interest in this property, it's almost a reward that is offset by the reward that we're willing to provide to the harbor and to the town, and which is going to be at great expense as well moving forward. And I hope that Dante would be able to address, I'm sure he knows every owner and every property in the neighborhood better than I do. I know where the clamming spots are from my youth.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? I'm good right now. You good? Should we hear from
Let's hear
Brian?
from Brian. Yeah.
All right, Brian, what about the owner? Does the owner want to speak? He didn't offer him up. Okay.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, board members. Brian Frank, Chief Environmental Analyst from the East Hampton Planning Department. I do think it's important to review this application in the context of its environmental settings and to evaluate it on that basis. Girard Drive is one of the most unique and environmentally sensitive areas in the town, and this board has had a long history of applying the Natural Resource Special Permit and Variance Standards more stringently on Girard Drive than many other areas of town. And there's good reason, and there are a lot of reasons to do that. As you know from other applications and discussion of Accabonac Harbor, Girard Drive and Accabonac in general is part of a New York State significant fish and coastal wildlife habitat. It is one of the few places in town where the Harbor Protection Overlay District extends to the Gardner Bay side of the property. That's somewhat unique to Girard Drive, Sam East Beach, these fragile peninsulas that really just this narrow separation between an inner harbor and an outer bay. This is an area, this is a scenic area of statewide significance, and I'm going to circle back to the visibility of this property as well as many of the other properties on Girard Drive. Time's up already? I'll just mention it now. Girard Drive, this property is visible from a lot of other areas that are protected around it. Girard Park is located, Girard Point Park is located to the south. Louse Point Park is on the other side of the Accabonac Inlet. Many of the road ends that you have on the mainland side of Accabonac Harbor, at Shipyard, at Landing Lane, places along Old Stone Highway have vistas of not only the harbor, but the residences, especially on the harbor side of Girard Drive, in the background. And what happens on these properties, not just the property that you're being asked to consider tonight, but what happens on them in general, has a significant role in shaping the character of the neighborhood, not just for what it's been over the past, whatever you want to say, 20 years, 50 years, but going forward, as we get more and more applications like this. Girard Drive is also, Accabonac Harbor is also an important bird area, as designated by the National Audubon Society. I think there's one other important bird area in town now in around Napeague, but I'm pretty sure Accabonac Harbor was the first designation of its kind in the town of East Hampton as an important bird area because of its use by not only breeding protected species, but shorebirds, overwintering ducks. It is a migration concentration point, and that led to its designation by the Audubon Society as an important bird area. And Accabonac Harbor is also unique as it's in two designated critical environmental areas. It is part of the larger Peconic Estuary critical environmental area that covers, most, if not all, of the Peconic Estuary. But Accabonac Harbor itself was designated its own unique and distinct CEA. And we talk about that a lot. And I think every now and then it's important to just go back and respectfully remind the board what a critical environmental area is. So the state of New York has criteria for designating a critical environmental area. And for an area to be a CEA, it has to have one or more of the following attributes. It has to be a benefit or a threat to human health, an exceptional or unique natural setting, an exceptional or unique area of social, historic, archaeological, recreational, or educational value, or an inherent ecological, geologic, or hydrological sensitivity to change that may be adversely affected by any physical disturbance. And I would respectfully suggest that Accabonac Harbor meets all four of the criteria for the designation of a critical environmental area. As I mentioned, it adjoins 9 areas of, if Tyler, if you wouldn't mind bringing up one of the aerials with the neighboring open space. So you can see the British property is bordered in blue, and this is just the closest open space around it. This is Girard Park to the south. That's about 9 acres. You can see additional properties nearby to the north. Those I'm sure were acquired with community preservation funds. And I'm going to mention this again, but I want to be clear that the planning department isn't recommending the condemnation of this property or that it goes away. I doubt that's what Andy was inferring in his presentation, but just to remove any ambiguity about it, this is about the development proposal before you. There's no question that what's on the property now is a legal use. It may predate most environmental regulations and be completely non-conforming to the town's wetland regulations, but nobody is disputing that it is a conforming residential use in a residential zone. If you were to look on the other side of the inlet to the south, you'd see more open space at Louse Point. If you went farther north on Girard Drive, you'd see other individual properties that have been conserved for open space, including improved properties that had much let's just say less maintained properties than the Britis, a little bit more ramshackle, if that's an okay word to use, that were raised in preservation. Caroline Gerard Park is on to the north of here as protected open space. That has parkland on both the Accabonoc and the Gardner's Bay side. And this is just Gerard Drive and Louse Point. If you go back onto the mainland side, the western shore of Accabonoc Harbor, you have a complete mosaic of conserved open space. You have a lot of town open space. You have parkland that's jointly owned between the town and the county. The Nature Conservancy has conserved property out there. I think the Peconic Land Trust does. Even the subdivisions, the improved properties, there are extensive areas of scenic easements out here. The town has gone to great lengths to protect both the cultural, the historical, and the natural attributes of this area, and I think that's what makes this application and the scrutiny that the department gave it appropriate, and that just comes with the area. The house is only 30 feet from the edge of the salt marsh. It's a 41% setback variance, which the planning department would argue is substantial. Tyler, if you wouldn't mind switching over to the Cobra map. Andy is correct. The house itself is in an ex-flood zone, but the property is also that shaded area. This southern part of the peninsula. This area marks a federally designated coastal barrier resources area, and we've mentioned that in a few other areas. That is a designation that's used for especially environmentally sensitive and vulnerable to flooding properties, mostly barrier islands, but obviously Gerard Drive and a few other areas in town it's not a true barrier island, but you could certainly see some of the parallels between Gerard Drive and a traditional barrier island like Dune Road in Southampton or Fire Island, for example. This is a fairly extensive reconstruction as well. If you take a look at the building plans, most of the interior walls on the first floor are going to be renovated. It is a 40% expansion of floor areas. Andy mentioned in his presentation, there is no conforming building envelope anywhere on the property. The property is entirely non-conforming to wetland setbacks. So the size of the property itself isn't really that relevant compared to the houses and both the existing and the proposed development's ability to conform with zoning. It's good that they got a DEC permit. I want to respectfully remind the board that the permit thresholds that the board evaluates are not the DEC's Article 25 Title Wetland Standards. They're the Natural Resource Special Permit and Variance Standards of the Town Code. And again, I'm going to remind you that they have been applied pretty stringently to Gerard Drive for many of the reasons that I've mentioned in this presentation. I appreciate the fact that the Britises have owned this property for 50 years. And again, the planning department is not recommending that the property be condemned or raised or removed. But I would also point out that for permit standards, Andy used the term Johnny-come-lately developer. It wouldn't matter. When you really start getting into who the applicant is and are they good people or bad people or have they been here for a long time or not been here for a long time, you really are on I'll defer to counsel, but you're on kind of the razor's edge of arbitrary and capricious. The planning department's recommendations wouldn't change if this was somebody who bought this lot on the open market last year, or if it were inherited by somebody who up until now lived in California and never set foot on Gerard Drive. The recommendations are based on the constraints of the property and the standards of the town code. I agree with Andy about the importance of a sanitary system upgrade, but I have to respectfully offer that it does not offset granting of the variance, not on this property, and the precedential value it would set on other properties. If everybody is encouraged, that anybody with a brick old cesspool system in the ground should plan in the future to install one of the newer sanitary systems, whether you want to call it an IA system, the innovative and alternative, or a low nitrogen system. They're basically mini sewage treatment plants. That's kind of what they do, more than, you know, a hole in the ground that separates liquid and solid effluent like a conventional sanitary system. Both the town and the county have rebate systems in place to offset the cost of that. The town has aggressively and was a leader in pioneering the county's regulations to get them implemented, recognizing the importance of reducing the load of nitrogen on water bodies. There's an entire Long Island nitrogen action plan dedicated to reducing the input of nitrogen island-wide, whether you're on Girard Drive or miles from the water, because of the density of the island and the number of on-site septic systems. And again, anybody who has been out here and has a connection to the land that it sounds like this family has, should really consider using the rebate program through the town and the county, and planning for the installation of an IA septic system. But it by itself cannot be used as leverage to offset a scale of development that doesn't fit the constraints of the property. And that's really the issue with this application. This is an application that I don't mind telling you, I don't think the applicants did a bad job designing it by keeping it mostly, with the exception of the outdoor shower, which never should have been proposed that close to the water. It is a reasonable request. And in other areas of the town, I don't think the planning department's recommendations would be as strong as they are here. But this application does not fit the constraints of the property, and the planning department respectfully has to recommend denial of it. If I can answer any questions about the application.
Just for clarity, for my sake, I mean, we're talking about character of the neighborhood, and often I think applicants compare character of the neighborhood, to other houses in the neighborhood. For character of the neighborhood here, am I right or wrong, consists of Accabonac Harbor, Girard Peninsula in entirety, as a whole, as a character. I mean, 255, 111, 255, 420, both state out clearly the vistas that they're trying to preserve for the public use, and in East Hampton. And I'm just wondering, if you can shed some light on, what is character of the neighborhood in this particular.
Well, honestly, I think that's something that's this board is empowered to interpret and apply in their deliberations, whether you think that's all of Girard Drive. The Southern Peninsula is especially sensitive because of the extent of the salt marshes. We've seen applications up near Fireplace Road where there's a lot more extensive land clearing. The properties on the Gardner Bay side are bulkheaded. There's not the natural character that exists on this property. This property has been a good steward around the perimeter here. There's Pine Barren Sandwort nearby. There's prickly pear. It's all natural vegetation, with the exception of the foot traffic that you get around the perimeter of any house, which is why, just when somebody says we're going to vegetate right up to the house, that just doesn't make any sense. There's always has to be a perimeter of some foot traffic around the house. So whether you choose to apply the character of the neighborhood to Accabonac as a whole, Girard Drive as a whole, the Southern Peninsula, or even the neighboring areas, these are all, the houses at the southern end here are all very, very close to the salt marsh. And I think the board is entitled to take that into consideration in their deliberations as well.
Questions?
No.
No. Thank you. Anybody in the public? Matt, anybody in the public?
I think
Yes, we do have one caller, yes.
Is that Joel?
I do not know. I'm going to unmute last four digits of 0385.
Is that Joel, Andy?
Yeah, hi, this is Joel. I have nothing to add at this time.
Thank you, Joel.
Yep.
Andy, last word? Oh, sure.
Stand by. I'm sorry. We got one last caller that just chimed in.
We'll take the caller first, and then we'll come back to you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Excuse me. Last four digits of 3844.
Hello, caller.
Yes.
Are you willing to, are you wanting to speak to this application?
Yes.
State your name and address.
My name is Christine Ganich at 105 Isle of Wight Road in East Hampton. There is not much I can add to Brian's assessment of this property other than to completely agree.
Christine, I have to swear you in. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Proceed.
I just wanted to also reiterate the importance of this area and to recommend to the zoning board that they deny this application. In addition, as Brian mentioned, the IA system should be placed here regardless of the plans that are being proposed. I do believe that this family is a good steward of the property, and that would be the right thing to do, irregardless of their other application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Redis? Sure. How are you?
Hello.
State your name. And
My name is Dr. Dante Britis. I'm the owner with my father of 330 Gerard Drive.
thank you. You raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's getting late and I will make my remarks brief. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you on our application. As Andy summarized, we came to Accabonac Harbor in 1971. My dad and his brother bought the house. My dad actually went against my mom's recommendation for one of the few times ever, as she characterized, didn't understand why he was buying a house on the swamp. He prevailed in this one situation, and it turned out to be a really special spot for my family and has been. It's been a family house. We've shared summers and weekends for 50 years now. For me personally, it was a godsend. I grew up fishing, crabbing, eeling, clamming, being a part of Accabonac Harbor. At times, I think it actually ran in my bloodstream. I would even say as far as it nurtured my love for the environment. Multiple projects through high school and college and marine biology found their roots in the Accabonac ecosystem. It's been a part, and I've learned by being a part of it to respect it and understand it. And I think I do pretty good job at that now. We have shepherded it and we've respected the property for 50 years. If you look at the land around it, the only improvements that we've made have been done tastefully and within the character of the neighborhood. We've used environmentally friendly approach because we had to drink the water that came out of the well on our property and eat the clams from the front of the harbor for all those years, and everything we did, including things before it was chic to be environmentally conscious. We've always lived that. We've worked with the town to preserve the property and shepherd it. We're not fly-by-night people. This is not an Airbnb. Nobody's coming in here in that situation. This is our family house and will always be that. We worked with the town to preserve the grasses along the Accabonac Harbor. And when Larry Penny was in his position, I worked with him to help prevent just indiscriminate destruction of the harbor side, which was going on. And we mobilized part of our neighborhood, including the Dixons who are sitting here today, to help with that. And the Accabonac Committee was involved in that. When the Conservation Committee at one point, we've been on numerous events where we've walked the town, the peninsula, cleaned the peninsula, our property. We shepherd the property. We respect it, and we hope that we do the things that are best for it. When we put this plan together, and it started about 4 years ago to think about, we brought an environmentalist in to look at the landscape and say that the properties itself and that the land, there wasn't a major upheaval as far as plant, fauna, things like that. We checked all of it to make sure it was right. The septic system is, the reality is that because we love the harbor, the septic system is we have to upgrade it. We think that that's a hugely important. We hope everybody on Gerard Drive does similar type thing. As far as the character of the house as it relates to the neighborhood, it is an eclectic thing. This isn't Nantucket where every house looks the same, but within the size of our community and the houses in our community, ours is not, and this modest addition will not be anything that stands out. Houses within 50 feet of ours are taller than our addition. Houses within 150 feet are 3 times the size. Even some of the renovations that have come are in the last couple of years that have gone on on Gerard Drive are houses that are much larger than mine is and ever will be. I want to work with the town. I want to make this something that we're both proud of. I've reached out to the town. I've written letters as this application went in. I've made phone calls soliciting and looking to see if there's anything I could do to make this application something that the town could embrace and be proud of. I know the septic system is the important part of it. We're going to have solar. We're going to have energy efficient windows. Everything is going to be so that the carbon footprint of this house is minimal and that it doesn't change the character, because we don't want the house and we don't want the area any different than it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Andy, closing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't really dispute a lot of the things that Brian has said, although I will say the Cobra was something I never anticipated was going to come up in front of the board. I'm more concerned about the way the town code and our town variances and the standards that apply to it. This is a difficult property. There's no conforming envelope, and there really, as far as I can tell, the only opportunity to expand this in any form, and the most sensible thing, would be to put a second-story addition on it. That's the best way for us to limit the impact. We're not expanding off of that footprint, and that was really the intent moving forward here. It is good to know that the sanitary system it's not being held hostage here tonight, but I think it is an important component for the board to consider. So we have on one hand a no development alternative, which seems to be favored by the planning department right now. I can't really tell. The alternative that we have in front of you is 502 square feet. I still consider that a very modest addition, a house size somewhere around 1,800 square feet. But if the board would consider it, we can go back and sharpen our pencils if we thought that there was a way to accommodate the goal here. But it's still it has to be a second story addition, even if we reduce it down to 300, 100 square feet. That's the only sensible location. So the board kind of has either this is cast in amber, and these improvements will endure the test of time until such time as they no longer are, or we have an incentive for a homeowner to improve the property in the only sensible environmental standard that we can do, which is build it on the second floor. I think we could reduce the scope of the interior renovations. However, that was, it's a house from 1971. So I don't think the intent was to, go in and gut the house. It just hasn't had any work done to it since 1951. A lot of the other houses can't say that. I'd look to the board to guidance. I would like time to submit a neighborhood analysis. That was one of the things, just in terms of, hey, what's around this place? Because I didn't focus on that, but I can at least pull some of the aerials, maybe some of the house plans that are on file with the town, and submit those just so we have a more accurate picture. And if the board would consider it, I would consider going back and trying to design something that is less than a 40% expansion of the square footage. But once again, it's going to have to be a second floor addition. And if the board is opposed to that, I won't waste the board's time in doing that.
Well, you certainly are able to, because we have a call-in caller. We have you have about a month, because we're going to have to keep the record open because of that.
Was it Joel?
Protocol. Not because of Joel, because we have a call. Not because of Joel. Joel didn't contribute. No, but so
that was the only good thing he would have done today.
We're going to have to wait. We're going to have to wait now for the transcript to be posted.
Okay.
So you will have about a month.
Okay.
to, if you want to submit other materials.
Okay, that's would be certainly acceptable to me.
You're aware also, there is a letter in opposition that was received. Is that
No, I
on the
wasn't pro-
website in the file?
It's in the public,
Okay, I will take a look at that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, ZBA, we have one additional caller. So I will unmute last four digits of 0177.
Okay.
Thank you. Caller? Are you here for
My
this
name is
application?
Deborah Raley. Okay.
Deborah, your address? Your address?
It was for years 313 Gerard Drive.
Thank you. Do you?
Excuse me, 1 second. Caller, this is LTV. Could you please mute your television or whatever device you're listening on? Because we're getting
Turn
an
that down.
echo.
You're listening. Turn it down. I'll turn it down. Yes.
Thank you. Caller, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I have been a Gerard Drive resident for 50 years. My family owned a place on the end there across the street from almost the property and knew the family well. Dante Burtis' family also included another Burtis family, which they bought out. And I think are really selfish to ask for this kind of deed when they are there for maybe 3 months a year. Other than that, the place is closed up. They are very close to neighbors, and they are definitely on wetlands. And that whole end is so fragile and has been for so long, it's really hard to believe that people want to build anything more down there. I'm surprised that Dante would agree to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, is any other callers?
Zero additional callers. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Barry, you want to make a motion?
Yeah, just for 2 weeks after the transcript, right?
Posted.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for the application of Dante Burtis at
I'm sorry.
3.
Brian?
I'd like to ask.
Okay,
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead. Brian.
I do apologize. Brian Frank again. I just want to, look, the record is open. Andy can submit whatever he wants. I want to be on record as objecting to a submission of a neighborhood analysis. I've been involved in dozens of them over the years. I don't think they contribute very much to the record. They tend to be very selective and a very narrow representation of what a very limited contribution to the record here. And I'm going to respectfully offer that what matters more is not what the sizes of the houses are around the British property or even on the whole Southern Peninsula there, but what this board has done with them recently. It's not about whether there are 3,000 square foot houses or 2,000 square foot houses in proximity. It matters if this zoning board has granted similar variances to those properties as being considered here tonight. And if that's the case and Andy wants to submit them and they're recent, again, we're not, let's try not to go back to the 90s. And even then there were plenty of denials, but that just ends up as being a thread in the record that just unravels and unravels. And I'm going to just, whatever he submits, the record's open. He's got the power to submit what he wants, but the board has the power to continue the hearing if that's the case. And I just want to be on record as saying that there's really, in my opinion, limited value to comparing house sizes. What matters is what the board has done on those properties, if anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are not looking to continue the hearing.
Go ahead.
No. Okay. For the application of Dante Burtis at 330 Gerard Drive, tax map 300-064-01-18, and make a motion to close the public hearing and to leave the written record up for a period open for a period of 2 weeks from the point where this transcript posts to the town website. Right? We'll have a transcript.
I concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our hearing portion. We'll enter our work session. And board members, I'm going to recommend we postpone the Nicholas Greco decision for next week. This will be a time when we have a full board present, 5 members, and I think it would be prudent to do so. Are you all in agreement with that?
I am in agreement with you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Other decisions, we have Stephen and Fiona Silver at 60 Seabreeze Lane in Amagansett, Suffolk tax map number 300-175-07-28. And that's a request to reopen the record until May 31st, 2022 to allow additional submissions. Council, you want to lead us in on that one?
Sure. This application, the record closed recently. It has not been work sessioned yet. It is the board's option by motion and unanimous consent to reopen the record to permit additional submissions to be handed in by the applicant and, of course, allow adequate time for the public to review those submissions and allow the board adequate time to determine whether or not those submissions are substantial enough that might require a second hearing or not. So I can't tell you what those submissions are yet because the record is closed, but that is the application. And again, this has not been work sessioned yet.
So
This is what we gave additional time to already, right?
You did. You gave them one additional. I think it was about a 2-week extension. Hold on.
your feeling?
I'm in favor of lowering them the time.
Okay. Are you in favor? I'm in favor. I think we can open it, but again, I think we're going to have to review it and see whether or not it's essential enough to go to hearing, go to another hearing.
I agree with that.
Wait, we did not vote on this yet?
You did not have a work session.
Extra time.
Right. You did not have a work session on it yet. However, as with prior applications where there have been requests to reopen or make additional submissions, regardless of whether you've work sessioned it.
In your lead up, you mentioned that if they're requesting to the 31st, we have to allow the public to respond. So do we need to leave it open beyond that?
The applicant has indicated that the additional submissions are ready to be handed in as soon as tomorrow. So I think if you left it open until the 31st, you would have that adequate 2 weeks, provided that they come in tomorrow. If the additional public comment period is required, we can certainly
How
address
does the
that.
public even know about it?
Because you're putting it on in the record in an open meeting right now.
Oh, yeah, assuming they're all listening.
Well, anybody with an interest in the application, such as people who have objected or supported, would be tracking it. Yeah.
Okay. Can we have a motion?
Minutes.
Well, I don't have it in the, it's not in the agenda.
I have it.
so
I
if
can
you have
read
the
it. I can read it.
information, why don't you-
I have it. So therefore, I would make a motion for Stephen and Fiona Silver at 60 Seabreeze Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk tax map number 300-175-07-28, to reopen the record until May 31st, 2022. At that point, the record will be closed.
I'll second that.
I concur.
I'll concur.
Thank you. We have no extensions of time. Minutes approval? May 10th, 2022.
Other minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the draft minutes from May 10th for the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals. Did I say approve?
Yes.
I'll second it.
And I will need to abstain because I was not there.
Yeah, I concur. Thank you.
Listed?
At that point, that ends our meeting. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to close the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals hearing of May 17th, 2022 at 8:31 p.m.
I'll second.
Concur.
I concur. Thank you. Thank you,